So I don't know about the rest of you. I don't know how long you've been in IT, but I've been in IT now about 20 years. Most of my training has been informal training. I haven't had a lot of school experience, and I certainly didn't coming out of high school. And when I first got into computers by getting into gaming, and it was text-based games, and so you'd connect to the network, and you would, go north, go south, and and then I needed to upgrade my computer, and so then I started upgrading my computer. But one of the things that's been consistent throughout all that is that as soon as you start learning about computers and you get interested, you had to grab every piece of equipment that came your way. If you saw if somebody threw out a switch, man, it was yours. And then you'd take it home, and then you'd have wires running all over your house, and you'd have computers sitting in every corner of the room. And so let alone the electricity and heat that they generate. But you never could really get a really good lab. You had to always put things together. So I discovered, I forgot to thank our sponsors. So thank you for letting us come and do some presentations. So the thing is, if you want to learn security especially, but infrastructure as well, that it's always changing, and we really need some way to reduce the barrier so that you don't have to buy, a Cisco switch is $5,000, let's say. Well, if you don't have $5,000 to buy 2 Cisco switches, then you're going to have, you can't practice. You have to go somewhere that somebody else has them. And the other thing is in security, as we've already talked about, it's very likely that if you start practicing your security skills on the general internet, you're going to get in trouble, either legally or someone else will catch you and make you wish you were sorry. And then the other thing that is true is that you also have to work on your core skills. You have to be able to do system administration in Linux, but you might not have that ability. You might be a student and not have access to the servers, or you might be an employee and not have access to those resources. So we really need something that basically is lower the barrier. So I'm flipping through slides because I want to focus mostly on a demo and actually show you what you can do with it. But so the cloud works perfectly for this, and the development of shareable resources and virtual resources is just exploded. And a company called Ravello, who's now been bought by Oracle, is front end for cloud resources. So you can do what you want to do, or what you might want to do without Ravello, but Ravello is basically a front end for designing patterns and labs and then deploying them quickly, and then you can do whatever you need to do, save them, run them later time, or break them down, start them over again. It's a safe place and a great front end to the cloud, and we'll go through the different scenarios that you can do. So you go to RavelloSystems.com. In the top right corner, you log in with a username and password. They have a 2-week free trial without a credit card. They actually pay for your resources for 2 weeks. So anybody who wants to go out and try it, you can get with me later if you want to today, or you can even go home and work on it. You start with a blank slate. There's no applications, but you can build and deploy those applications, and they're saved. There's also a library, so if you want to load your own systems up, you can load your own ISOs or your own virtual machines into the Ravello environment, save them, and use them and play around with them. The examples that we're going to talk about today, there's a man-in-the-middle security playground, there's a Linux web security lab blueprint, and a lab just to straight test Linux security, just the kernel and things like that. Once you design a blueprint, and again, we'll see all this in the demo, but once you design a blueprint, you can add it to your library, and then you can keep redeploying that. So you name it, and then you can come back later and tweak it a little bit and have version control in your environments even. So the way most of the systems work is with SSH keys. So you'll be creating keys, and then to log into the public. If your application has a public access, then you can log into the servers using SSH, or Usually you can't log in very easily as a username and password. So they've shut that off so that it helps build your security. But you can configure it. Again, it's pretty configurable. But so you'll want to keep your keys somewhere safe if you don't already have a good practice of keeping your keys safe. And then some of the other cool features is that when you start an application, it comes up and asks you how long you want to run, and you can choose never, or how long before you shut down. You can choose never, but it's by default it's 2 hours. So since you're being charged for resources per hour, if you let it run for 2 hours and you forget to shut it down, it'll shut it down itself. So that's another good feature, because in the cloud, that's one of the number one challenges is you start something up and forget it, and then it runs for a month, and then you get billed for a month. So it does shut it down automatically. And then the help files are really comprehensive. They've built a really good system that can walk you through this. Okay. On to the fun part. So I'm going to stand over here and not point to the screen so much, because since I'm actually going to be doing stuff. But you can stop me and ask questions if you want. I'll try and look up as much as I can. So I've already deployed, and you can see here, I've deployed 2 applications. One of them is running. I started it this morning, and the other one is stopped. But I'm going to go ahead and look for a new one to add. So if I look at, so again, you can create your own with your own libraries, but if you look, there's the Ravello repo has lots and lots of blueprints. And actually, how I got started with this is where I work, we've switched our infrastructure from typical storage to Nutanix, hyperconverged infrastructure. And so I wanted to play with Nutanix and actually get to figure out how it worked. And so I found a link that took me to this site, and Nutanix builds their community edition and puts it on here, so you can just drag and drop Nutanix on here and start learning how to use Nutanix, the commands for the CVMs and prisms and things like that. So you can just scroll through these. There's one of the things that's cool is there's a lab and you can go to a lot of the documentation is sometimes out on other sites like lab guides, but there's also Cisco CSRs. So if you're interested in learning Cisco and learning routing and switching, routing mostly, I haven't seen a virtual switch up here yet, but there's a Puppet lab deployment that's already configured. So if you wanted to look at that blueprint, you click on it and it'll tell you it's got 4 VMs and how they're configured, and about what the cost is to run. So my security labs, I don't think I've ever spent more than $15 a month, but that's on the really high side, because my security lab cost me about 53 cents to run. And we'll go back to the security lab and actually look what options are there. But once you pick a blueprint, I'm going to find a different one because I don't use Puppet that often. Oh, you can also search. Up here on the right-hand side, you can search for a... So I'm not going to search because I'll use this security one. So this is interesting. It's got a Kali, it's got Metasploit and WebGoat. So if we look closer at that, there are 3 VMs, costs about 43 cents an hour. And you just read through the different options, and then they do tell you the credentials, so if you need to log into the system with the username and password. So once you decide, I decide this is the one that I'm going to use, you add it to your library and it creates a copy. Nope, I already called it that. And you'll see that it adds to the library, and you can just click to open. So once you get in a blueprint, this is the canvas that you work on. So all these are 3 different VMs. You can tell what they've been configured with as far as networking by these little icons that they have. You can also come over here to the network tab, and it'll show you the network layout. It'll show you that it's, you know, what subnet it's going to pull IP addresses from. You could configure DHCP servers to do different things, or DNS. So you can, there's again a lot of flexibility that you can play with here. Once you've finished playing around, you can actually, if you get on a server, you can actually change things like, instead of 2 CPUs, I gotta save it to my library because it's not not custom. But so you can change how many CPUs you run, how much memory, what type of platform you want to run it on. It doesn't really change what you see, but you can, if you're trying to use this for production loads, which I don't recommend, but if you're trying to run a production load out here, you can optimize it for performance, and that costs more, but it gives you more resources and dedicates more back-end processing to it. So you can also allow nested virtualization, which is kind of a new feature within ESX as well, where you have multiple virtual machines running inside, and they're running a virtual machine environment. So once you get the blueprint the way you want the blueprint, then you can publish the application. And you click Create Application. Now this is the actual. Once I click Create Application, this is the application that's going to be saved and the virtual machine's created. So it's not like some of the labs that you work with where you have to save everything you're doing and then save the config files out. These are virtual machines that are created and stored until you delete them. So once you get in and change configuration, it's just like a server. So you can get in, make configuration changes, save them, and reboot them, shut them down, and they work. All of your data, all of your effort is stored. So I'm just going to go into the lab that I have running already. So, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how many virtual machines you have set up to start all of them and configure all the networking and do all that. So it takes a few minutes to get started, but once you're started, they're running and you have all the resources that you need. So this particular lab I like because it's not actually, there's no, the Kali Linux box doesn't have access to from the internet, so it's just one box less likely to get hit. The WordPress vulnerabilities are exposed to the internet, which you can again go in and change. So I use the console to log into the Kali Linux. I haven't got this one configured very far, so I still have to log in as root. Which we all know is a bad practice, but in Kali it can be your friend because all of the tools run under root, so otherwise you're sudoing a lot. So one of the things that you can do in here is in the security lab is you can, all of the nice thing about the Kali distro is that you can go into these applications and they're grouped together by the type of tool that they are. So you can, if you're learning and you want to see what's on the network, having trouble moving the mouse, but that's probably because I'm just not patient enough. So you can see here the infamous Nmap, which we've already heard about today. Recon. I just used NetDiscover the other day. And so it walks you through, what you need to do. And you can see on this subnet that the Kali Linux has access to, it can see the other hosts that are available. So then you can open up Iceweasel at this point you would use Nmap to start actually scanning the hosts and determining what kind of host it is and what you need to access. But you can see that they've already provisioned WordPress. Oh, I didn't turn on hold on a second. I have already configured this to do web application analysis, so it's configured for a proxy server. Now I think it should run. And there's a network penetration testing blog set up on WordPress. So you can actually see in the background that Peros is capturing the data, and you can scroll through and actually look at the information that's coming back. But so that's the security lab. Once you're done with it, you can come back to it. You can individually shut down the machines. You can stop and restart them. You can grant, so this has the feature for corporations or large organizations. You can create sub-users, and then you can grant users to, access to the specific libraries or applications that you want them to have access to. So it is more flexible that way. I haven't used any of those features, so I can't testify to how well they work. But you can see also that you can create disk images in virtual machines. You can import them, and once you get them imported, you can basically start configuring them and running them around. One example is I keep an Ubuntu server up to date, so I just keep it up to date and then publish it, and I can rapidly deploy a Ubuntu server and put more stuff on it, whatever I want to. They can connect to the internet outbound, so you can get the repositories and start testing and playing around.
They can connect outbound from the
Yeah, from their virtual environment, they can connect outbound.
Everything live. You don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And then lastly, once you're done, you just need to shut down everything. You can actually shut down the application, and it'll shut down all of your VMs as well. You can also save it as a blueprint, so you can, again, you make changes, save it, and go back in version control. But it's a really cheap or relatively cheap anyway, tool that lets you build your labs in the cloud. And you can build this isn't to preclude you from, if you want to build labs in Amazon Web Secure or Amazon Web Services, you can go out there. They have a trial for basically you can get a year of free access if you use T2 micro instances, and you can create instances till you're blue in the face and do all the networking there. Azure has a $200 credit, but that goes pretty fast, so I haven't had as much experience with Azure. And then Google's public cloud, I haven't had a lot of luck getting that to do quick access. If you want to migrate workloads there, they have a lot of APIs and things that you can call and move entire workloads back and forth, but it's not as easy to use as a kind of this front end. So I guess I talk fast, but that's about all I have. I'll just open it up for questions. Although now I shut it down.
I noticed that when you're creating the new one, there was no option for architecture. It's all x64, x86.
No, you can. It'll run x86 as well. You just have to, when you upload the image or find an image that's that's 32-bit or 60, depending on which one you want, then you just select that as an option in the CPU.
If you can update them from even the image they're updated and has internet connectivity, so
yeah.
In theory, you could put a Kali Linux out there and start
Yes.
hacking the internet from it.
Yeah, and you can also do inbound.
Turned on, somebody could possibly hack into your lab.
Yeah, so if
It's really an open.
yeah, so there's a firewall there, and you can poke holes through it, so you can get access to it from the internet. So you don't have if you want to SSH directly to the host, you can use the key and poke a hole in for port 22. In the security lab, I deliberately leave it self-contained so that I'm not encouraging people to hit me. So it's up to you how you want to use it. But it's, again, for me, it's one of these major leap forwards in innovation because, I used to have to collect equipment and have 100 computers in my house, and now I don't have to have any. I'm running it on my wife's computer to be able to get on and do my lab work. So, anything else? Cool.
So what about
Yeah.
like if you want a Windows system, do you have to purchase a license?
So I haven't looked for. I would assume so. You would, if you upload an ISO, an image. You could create your own image of Windows. You'd have to license it yourself and then upload the virtual machine. I haven't seen any Windows environment labs yet, so I don't know if they're just not out there or if people are deliberately avoiding putting them on Ravello for licensing. In Amazon, you can load Windows boxes, so they've got licensing worked out. So it's certainly possible. It's just I don't know if they've ever addressed that question.
I would assume you could upload like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I use a lot of is the 90 and 180 day licenses for Windows boxes. Thanks for your time.